Hey guys, if you're a do-it-yourselfer or just like to save a little bit of money, I'm going to show you how to fix a broken bumper um, on any maker model of vehicle in less than 30 to 60 minutes on a very small budget. This is a 2016 Hyundai. I think it's a Santa Fe. I could be wrong. I can't quite remember. And it doesn't really matter. You can do this on any bumper. This had a crack in the bumper that initially I didn't get a picture of it, but I kind of cleaned the crack out and sanded it flush. And what I'm doing here is applying a little bit of crazy glue so that it doesn't shift. Because once I apply the Bondo, you don't want any shifting because it could crack and then the Bondo will start to displace. So you can use anything on hand, two-part epoxy, crazy glue, or any really strong adhesive like Gorilla Glue. I use that because I had that on hand. Then you just need a little bit of Bondo. And what you want to do is massage the Bondo into the crack. If you don't do that, then when you sand it, you run risk of it being too thin in a certain area, and you might have to reapply Bondo. So I just massaged it into the crack and all the lower areas, and then I'm applying a skim coat of Bondo over the rest of the area. Let that dry for a couple minutes, and I'm using an orbital sander. I think that I started with around 280 grit sandpaper, but you can use whatever you have on hand. Sometimes it'll go a little bit slower or faster, but in the end you're gonna have to feather it out with a really fine grit sandpaper. Then I'm using a block, and I think it's around 500 grit sandpaper, and sanding it. I'm cross hatching my sanding strokes so that you get a really flat surface from all directions. And you have to use a block because if you don't, then you're going to get little grooves where your fingers are, and if you're a perfectionist, you're going to notice that right at the very end. You're going to see those little divots. Then you just use a dry cloth with nothing on it, just wipe the area, and I'm just wiping a little bit of the Bondo that was on the outskirts of the main area rather than sand it off. The least amount of sanding, the better. And you want to clean the area with a solvent, gun wash or lacquer thinner usually works best. And you want to wipe the area, but don't wipe right over the Bondo because you're going to create yourself an edge and you're going to have to resand it with 800. I'm just wiping the primer back to where my sanding marks start, because if you don't, then rather than feathering the primer, it'll just keep peeling back till you hit an area that's prepped with sandpaper where it has a chance to adhere. Those outskirt edges of the primer is where you want to concentrate on most with your 800 grit sandpaper. You can use 600, but I recommend anything 800 or higher. And again, you'll notice where your low spots are once you run your block over over the area, you'll see dark spots and light spots, and you can pretty much tell where it needs to be sanded. And again, you want to crosshatch when you're sanding the primer as well. I just used a little bit of a Scotch pad to knock any overspray, and then I used a tack cloth to pick up any dust or particulate before I started spraying with my paint. I ordered paint from an automotive store to get the best match. And I'm applying it with an airbrush, and it to some people may seem like a complicated piece of equipment, but you couldn't get a simpler piece of equipment to use. I'll be posting a how-to on preparing and how to take care of your airbrush before and after, which couldn't be simpler. I think I got that airbrush for maybe like $12 or $13 at a Princess Auto. Then I went over the area with a Scotch pad. The metallic in the paint will sit on the very top, so if you run your hand over it, you'll actually feel it a little bit grainy. And I use that Scotch pad to just knock that down to apply another layer. And then again, there's going to be the light layer of metallic sitting on, and I'm just feeling to see how much of that gritty metallic is on the surface. And the final stage, just a simple 2-part clear coat. You can use any brand. If you don't have something like this on hand, I recommend, if you already went out and purchased the airbrush or own one, to not use a clear coat in an aerosol can. Rather buy it in bulk to run it through your airbrush and get a better finished product. And finally, that's just a little bit of aerosol blender, and it just melts together the new clear and the old clear. And as you can tell, it's pretty much perfect, the results. You may think that this is complicated, but you will, I think you'd be very surprised at yourself. Just to give it a shot. That, from start to finish, I think took me around 10 to 15 minutes. Don't expect yours to turn out that perfect, but I'm sure you'll be proud of your results. Thanks for watching.